here to the computer. Perfect. Well, welcome to our, my gosh, this is our March Grit to Greatness webinar. We're excited to have you here. My name is Coach Rich Soares, and I am one of four coaches on Grit to Greatness. I am going to be leading most of the conversation tonight. But before we get into all of that, I'm going to pitch it to Coach April, who's going to pitch it to somebody, who's going to pitch it to somebody.
Love that. I love that. Hey everyone, I'm Coach April Spilde. I love that we are here spending time together with our growth mindset on and going to learn from Coach Rich as well as share and learn from each other. So super excited. And I'm also in Colorado. Coach Rich and I have been working together for almost 2 years now, which is just phenomenal. So excited to learn tonight and glad to be here with y'all. Coach Lauren.
Hello, everyone. I am Coach Lauren. I am East Coast. I know we got Jeff here on East Coast with me as well. I'm really excited for you guys to be on this call. Coach Rich is a wealth of knowledge on the topic, and there's going to be really a lot of great information that you can apply immediately in your training and in your racing. So take notes, ask questions, and just, be ready to have a next step in your training process. So, and I'm excited to pass it off to Coach KO.
Hey everybody, Kristen Overton. If anybody wants to know my real name, but it's much easier to just say KO. Love it. I am also East Coast in Connecticut, so we're sort of East Coast West halvesies. So yeah, super happy to be here tonight. Rich is going to give us some great information. Nothing better than learning more about nutrition and hydration because it will definitely make or break you during your race. I've made all of the mistakes. So I think what we all learn from our mistakes, we all learn from everybody else's experiences, and we all want to do better. So it's going to be great tonight.
You're on mute, Rich.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm off mute. Thank you guys for those kind words and your introductions. And you guys are not off the hook. You guys keep saying Rich just got all this great information. You guys have a lot of great information you're going to add to this. Plus, all the athletes here, you guys all have experience. You're all coming at this from a different place. Some of you are going to have information that, is going to be information that others can benefit from. So if you have something to share, you have an experience, something that you've tried with nutrition that isn't coming out, or you've got, a finer point on something, please feel free to fold it into the conversation. So let's make this very collaborative and let's just learn something together. Yeah, so I am coming at that. You can see we're all wearing some of our favorite race shirts. See Ironman Alaska on Coach April. We got World Championship 70.3 over there on Coach Lauren. And we got, what is that, Lake Placid over there, KO? Lake Placid, rocking on Lake Placid. Nice. This is my very first Ironman. This is I've learned some nutrition lessons out on the race course, some starting back as far as 2009, and then we go to let's see if I can do this. We've got Ironman Coeur d'Alene in 2010. We know it's coming, right? All right. Somebody said we were going to do this, so I did it. Back to Cozumel in 2011, we're the full there. And then let's see, we skip a year and we go to Arizona in 2013. And then we're going to wrap things up in Boulder in 2014. So there's a little bit of experience here with nutrition, especially at long distance. And I'm actually really proud. I just learned today that I successfully passed the USAT Level 2 certification course, which really went into nutrition and science at another level. So I'm glad to bring this and all of our teammates here. So let's dive in. I am going to share my screen. Share, and I want to share the right slide. Let's see if I get the right one here. Nope. It's all right. We're going to get there. Promise we're going to get there. Okay.
While we're waiting here, Rich, do you mind if I throw a little icebreaker out there?
Would you do it? That'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah. So you see the four of us coaches are wearing our favorite Ironman race shirt. If you have a favorite race that you've done, whether it's Ironman branded or not, we'd love to have you put it in the chat. What's your favorite race that you've done?
Love that. And
Over
while
to
we're
you.
doing this, be thinking about the races that you've got coming up this year.
Yeah.
This is going to be, put it in context for what you have coming up. So I've titled this Race Nutrition Planning, No Guessing, really to try to take the guessing out of, there's a lot of information out there, and we're going to try to dial this down and put it into science. The goals that I have for you today is that by the end of the session, you're going to have an idea of how much to drink during training and racing, that you'll know, you'll have an idea, or at least a way to find out if you are a salty sweater and how much electrolytes you're losing in your sweat. You'll also at least come away with some guidelines on how much carbohydrate you should be consuming, what electrolytes and carbohydrates are right for you. They take different forms, and the way that you consume it can make a difference. We'll also talk a little bit and help you make sure that you walk out of here with an idea on how to preload before a race, especially a long distance race, and how to recover, and then how to create your race nutrition plan and your whole race plan and we're going to use RaceX as the example. So key considerations, just as you try to prepare yourself for the conversation we're going to have, think about what is the distance of the race that you're preparing for? How long will you be out there on each leg of that race? What is the intensity that you'll be racing at, whether it's in heart rate or power or pace? Those race execution guidelines are a great place to start, and it'll tell you kind of what your intensity level is. We're going to want to prepare for that race intensity. What are the weather conditions going to be? Is it going to be cold? Is it going to be humid? Is it going to be really hot? Is it going to be windy? All of those things can impact nutrition. Do you have a sensitive stomach? Here we just take a little bit of an inventory here of things that we have to take into consideration. Do you suffer from cramping, or do you have to take frequent bathroom breaks? Some of us older male athletes tend to have to, pull over a little more often than others. Or can't make it through the night. But these are going to be personal to you. And I'm going to really quick just check in with April, Lauren, and KO. Any other things that you guys think of when you're thinking about preparing for your race nutrition for a race?
I'd like to think about what also is going to be on course. I think that can
Great
help
one.
with,
Yeah, big
your
one.
preferences and also training with those items to see if you're even compatible um, with what they offer.
Great one.
That's a,
Yep.
I was going to say that's a great one, April. And then also, I mean, weather conditions, and I think we're going to cover this potentially, but even being aware of like weather changes that might be taking place during the day, because I've been in races where it was thunderstorm seeming like pouring on the bike, and then hot, humid, crazy on the run. So being able to shift if that happens as well.
Yeah, April, or sorry, Lauren. I agree, and yeah, just having your A, B, and C plan for nutrition. I'm sure Rich will kind of touch on that as well, because of those changes that can always happen.
And if you have questions that you want us to address, just put them in the chat. And the coaches, I'm in presentation mode. I won't see them, but the other coaches, you guys look out for those. We'll get those answered as we go. All right. Let's answer the first question that was on our list of objectives. How much to drink? How do you know how much you need to drink? How would you even start to know how much to drink? Well, let's find out what your sweat rate is. And listen, this isn't the be all end all, but it's a great place to start to figure out how much you sweat and how much you sweat in different conditions. So what you see here is a screenshot of a spreadsheet, and what you can see are a date, a temperature, an activity, a duration. There's an intensity metric here, which is heart rate, which is kind of an indication about relative for this athlete, how hard they're working. We've got weight prior to the workout, weight after the workout, the percent change, the change in ounces, and the amount that they consumed in ounces during that, let's say 50-minute, 60-minute, 80-minute, 64-minute, etc. duration. There's a pretty straightforward formula here to calculate the change in weight in pounds or ounces and figure out, if the only difference is that you were working and sweating for an hour and taking in fluid, that's really the only thing that changes. So the way that we get to this number, the way that we try to understand how many ounces per hour you're losing, is we've got a little protocol. Before you were to, let's say you were going to go do one of these workouts, you've got a 60-minute bike ride, and you want to know let's say it's going to be a nice zone 2 easy ride. You just want to know how much you sweat at 70 degrees indoors at that intensity. Easy to find out. Take everything off that has weight. Empty your bladder, weigh yourself. Use a digital scale down to 1/10 of a pound, record that number. Conduct a 1 hour effort. 1 hour is nice because you usually can get through 1 hour without having to go to the bathroom. And, it's a pretty controlled time frame, right? It's pretty steady effort. It's not like you're taking breaks. Steady 1 hour effort. When you record the heart rate, power, intensity, your temperature, and how much you consume during that period. Whether you want to weigh your bottle before and after, or you just want to record it in ounces, either way is pretty close. When you're done with that workout, take off all those clothes, towel dry yourself off. There's no water weight on your body whatsoever, and weigh yourself again down to the 1/10 of a pound. We now have all of the information, the number of minutes you were working, how hard you were working, what the temperature was, your weight before and after, how much you drank, to know what your sweat rate is. And guess what? After a while, we start to have this nice collection of data. And when we comes to race day and we know you're going to be out there on the bike course and it's going to be 60 degrees or 70 degrees, we'll have examples from those different temperatures and intensities. And we can just dial it in and go, oh, okay, well, we know about what you're going to be losing sweat rate wise this time of the day at that intensity on that activity. And it might look very different later in the day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the baking sun out there on the run course. You might be sweating more, like in this case, you can see some examples of 48 ounces and 41 ounces an hour. So higher sweat rates on the on run examples here. It's not always that case. Sometimes it's very individual. So any Anything, coaches, that you've done to help kind of gauge sweat rate? If not, we can keep going. This lines up. All right, good thumbs up. Keep going. This is also good for you to think about now how to hydrate. So if you know you're losing this much weight, and by the way, you don't really start to notice a performance, like a detriment to your performance until you get to about the 2% body weight range. At about 2%, you're going to start to feel legs aren't firing. You might start to feel like some nausea in your stomach. You're slowing down. You might stop sweating. You're not peeing anymore. You're going to start to notice some performance issues happening. Those are some signs that you're getting dehydrated. If, however, you're starting to get like you have a headache or you're vomiting, um, those can be signs potentially that, or dizzy, you're really dizzy. That could be a sign of hyponatremia, which is the opposite. You're getting too much water and not enough electrolyte, and now literally your cells are starting to get overhydrated, and that could be a dangerous. Actually, it can even be a life-threatening condition. More dangerous than dehydration by far. So knowing how much to drink and also knowing what your sodium intake is really important. And that's going to be our next topic. So let's dive into that. All right. How do you know if you're a salty sweater? I keep thinking like, I got salt on my sweater. I don't know. By the way, anybody, I just learned this last night with Greg. I didn't realize that Ironman had shifted back from mortal hydration back to precision hydration. So they're back to precision hydration. I think I probably missed the memo on that. So this is perfect. Listen, if you want to guess at whether you're a salty sweater, there's the old, hey, look at your kit, and if you see a bunch of salt on it, you might be a salty sweater. Or just because you crave salty foods, that maybe you are a person who sweats a lot of salt out, and therefore you need to replenish your salt. Maybe, I don't know. I prefer, let's go to the science. Let's get this tested. It is really easy to do, folks. You can go, and I'll show you the website to go to here in just a second. We'll send this deck out. There's a hyperlink in here to their website. You can determine your sweat sodium concentration per liter, how many milligrams of sodium you have per liter at one of the precision hydration testing centers. We've got a couple right here in Colorado. They're all over the country. And then once and by the way, this is not something that changes a lot over time. This is something that you're pretty much genetically disposed to. It might change a little bit over time, but it's very slow moving. If you are a salty sweater, you're probably going to be in the neighborhood of 2,000 milligrams of sodium per liter. If you're a low sweater, you can see this says I'm a low salt sweater. I'm down there in the low section, right there around 600. That is relatively low. Kind of right down the middle of the lane is about 1,000. It's right about the middle of the lane. Fortunately, products like Precision Hydration make different concentration mixes, a 500 milligram, a 1,000 milligram, and a 1,500 milligram, so that you can dial it in for what's personally right for you. So you go and get this test. It shows you where you're at. Now, I'm like right here in the middle. So I'm going to be okay probably if I use Precision Hydration 1,000 and maybe the occasional drink of just plain water, I'll be fine. If I was doing Precision 1,500, I'm probably going to be getting too much sodium. I'm going to be retaining too much water, potentially. Or if I go too low, or if I'm just drinking plain water, that can also potentially lead to hyponatremia. It is really important that you know this number. If you are let's go back to the previous slide. Let's say you are a low sweater. Let's say maybe you only sweat, I'm going to just make up a number, 10 ounces an hour. Okay, well, if you're 10 ounces an hour and even if you're a 1,500 milligram per liter person, you're not losing a lot of sodium. That's not a lot. That's not too bad. But if you're like on the 50 ounces an hour and you're a 1500 milligrams, sweater, think about how much sodium you are losing per hour. That's basically a liter and a half. You're losing, 2,000, 2,500 or more milligrams of sodium an hour. If you're not replacing that, you're going to feel the performance impact pretty fast. So no guessing. Go ahead and get tested. This is what this is the website. You can see it's precisionhydration.com/test centers. And like you can see right here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 right here in your window. Just search your zip code and Bob's your uncle. I've always wanted to say Bob's your uncle in one of these presentations.
Can I just say one thing, Rich?
Yes, please.
So not only the precision testing centers, but at a lot of the Ironman and 70.3 races, they have had testing there called the salt lab or sweat lab. I think it's a salt lab that John Mayfield has been doing around races. So, if you're at a race, keep an eye out for that. It's a good opportunity to get that done.
Great suggestion. There's also wearables now that you can get. The tech is out there. You can just wear a wearable they say they're not too off. They're pretty accurate. So
yeah, I was going to actually say that too, Coach Rich. I just got a wearable from H Drop that I've really enjoyed because you can see easily throughout those different temperatures and styles of workouts and times because it will track all of that and give you a really good profile of your needs. So that's another, I will say it is a bit expensive, but if you're paying for this already through testing, it might just be a neutral cost, if you will. So I wanted to say that too.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Great. How about anybody out there? Just anybody got a question? Just check in with you guys. We're still here on hydration before we get into fueling. Any questions
Rich,
out there?
Can I add a comment real quick?
Of course, Sarah.
H Drop on their website has some blogs, and they've got something in there that says with the sodium concentration, what precision fuel and hydration tests out as generally more your moderate intensity. But if you're going higher intensity, you probably need a higher amount of sodium. But precision hydration hasn't done that testing yet to give real specifics. In a really low intensity, you need less sodium. So just something to kind of keep in mind.
Great, thank you, Sarah.
Go to their website and look at those articles, their blogs.
Yeah, never stop learning, folks. And I'll tell you, for anybody who, there are occasions where someone's measured sweat rate doesn't really translate well to really knowing how hydrated or dehydrated you are. One of the things you really don't know is at the beginning of one of these tests that we were just talking about is how hydrated were you at the beginning of the test? So a former pro and Dr. Meredith Kessler has been a guest on our podcast a few times. And one of the things that she would do, and not Meredith Kessler, what am I saying? Amanda Stevens, Dr. Amanda Stevens. Meredith Kessler is not a doctor as far as I know. Urinalysis strips. Let's see if I can get these in the picture here. Specific gravity is something that you can measure objectively and with science, no guessing. You have pee in a cup, you take out a strip, you stick it in the pee, you pull it out, you let it do its adjustment, and then you just measure the color against the chart to get a reading of how hydrated or dehydrated you are. You can do this at the beginning. The spreadsheet, by the way, does have a column for this at the beginning of the workout and for the after so that you can see before and after what's really going on inside. Okay, but wait, there's more. How much carbohydrate should I consume? This is there's a range. There are some general guidelines. We'll talk about the USAT and Ironman U guidelines here in a second. But really the gold standard here is, again, go to a lab, get tested. The accessibility of these might vary by your location. here in the Colorado Front Range, we're pretty lucky. We can, swing a bat and hit somebody to do this for us. This, what this is, it's like if anybody's ever done a lactate threshold test or a VO2 max test, or maybe you've done a metabolic test, it's a progressive test. You can do it on a bike or a run. You start at rest and you slowly make the intensity harder and harder. And you're breathing into a mask that's collecting data from the CO2 that you're exhaling. And because of the gas mixture that you're exhaling, it's able to determine what are you using in terms of the mix of energy substrate, carbohydrate versus fat that you're metabolizing for fuel. And you can then chart that as intensity increases, you start to burn more and more sugar. As intensity increases, you tend to burn less and less fat. You're having to go to glycogen, sugars, carbohydrate stores to be able to fuel your effort. So the harder you're going on a percentage basis, the more sugar you're burning. This is like your gasoline, right? So this is like, this is you hope that you've got a full tank at the beginning of your race, but this is your gas mileage. Just like when you're going really fast down the highway, your gas mileage is this is a little bit in reverse, honestly. But the faster you're going here, your gas mileage is going down. So what to do about that? Why is that important? Because that's going to help us know. We can then translate this. If you get one of these reports, it'll translate it into how many grams and calories are you burning per hour at this level of intensity. If that tells you that at zone 2, you're burning 300 calories of carbohydrate per hour, and at zone 4, you're burning 400, well, now you have an idea. Okay, well, if I've got 400, how much did I have in the bank to start with? How much was in my tank at the beginning of the day? You can start to really quickly calculate how much fuel in the tank, how far that fuel is going to take you based on your gas mileage. So here are the guidelines from Ironman, and these are in grams. So think about when you look at these gram numbers, think about multiplying that number by 4. That's going to be your calories. When you're trying to think about the calories that you need to intake in terms of carbohydrate, that's kind of what we're going for. The bigger the athlete, the more carbohydrate you're probably burning. The smaller the athlete, probably a little less in terms of overall volume. That is also going to account for some of the difference in the prescribed recommendations for athletes. You see the big ranges here. It's taking into account ranges of athletes. Not everybody's the same. Some people are just natural high sugar burners, and they're going to start out higher sugar burners. Some people are naturally more metabolically efficient, and they are burning more fat. You will not know. You cannot know by looking at yourself in the mirror or anybody else what that mix is. In order to really know, you've got to test it. Otherwise, you're guessing a little bit. So I'm going to stop there. Let's open it up for some discussion. While you guys are thinking about that, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the options that you have out there, just to draw a couple of illustrations here. You can see here I've got 7 different products, arguably, on here. You can see one of these is a sachet. One of these is, some of these are pouches. They're like a pouch of chewables, gels or gummies. Oh, April's got her hand up. There's some gels in here, and what I guess what I illustrate here is you can take carbohydrate in a lot of forms: drink, solid, gel, and even there's fructose, sucrose, maltodextrin. And the more of a range that you have, the more you can actually consume, especially if you're a bigger athlete who needs more carbohydrate. You might need a bigger range of carbohydrate. And then finally, there's a couple of, and UCAN is a great example of this. It is not a simple sugar. It is not a maltodextrin. It's not a fructose. It's not a sucrose. It's actually a carbohydrate that's from a starch, just like a starch, like just like baked bread makes, carbohydrate. This is the same concept. It's just a slower burning carbohydrate. It's easier on your stomach. April.
Love that, Rich. I was just kind of thinking through when we talk about metabolic efficiency, and we you brought up the really great point about sodium and your kind of your genetics play into whether or not you're a super salty sweater or you're lower or medium. When it comes to metabolic efficiency, I'd love to hear your perspective on how that changes over time or how you can manipulate that.
Oh yeah. Okay. That's a great question. So first of all, you're going to have some natural tendencies just genetically, right? Some people are going to be just naturally have a higher metabolism than others. We see that, right? We know that we're all different in that way, and we just can't control that. That's just what God gave us. Um, can't pick your parents. Um, but it is a trainable thing within a range. So actually, part of my deep dive into this and this chart that we were just looking at here was an experiment that I did with Bob Seebahar, who actually wrote the book on metabolic efficiency for athletes. He was actually a USAT nutrition advisor for the Olympic team back in a while, 2012 or something, I think. And we did a test before to baseline what's called the metabolic exchange point, where you start to burn more sugar than fat. At what level of intensity that was. It's costly to burn more sugar. So if we can get the body to shift to burn more fat, that's ideal. And the best race I ever had was after this process. He gave me a very prescribed diet of target macros, fat, carbohydrate, and protein every day, periodized such that I only took more carbohydrate on high intensity or very long days. So it was a little more carb restricted. My body learned to burn more fat for fuel. 6 weeks later, we did this test. My metabolic efficiency point was 1 minute per mile faster than it was 6 weeks prior with very disciplined eating. Like coach overseeing, like every day, did you hit? Yeah, that's annoying. There is another option. I'll bring this up since we're on the topic of metabolic efficiency. Vespa Power, these packets, these are a amino acid that's derived from it's a wasp extract. It's kind of strange stuff, but this will do what took me 6 weeks to do. This will happen in 25 minutes. It'll move your body into fat burning mode pretty fast. This is an interesting product. It's basically you pretty much replace 2 gels for every one of these because you're burning that much more fat than you are sugar. So interesting thing to not a fuel, but a catalyst that moves your body to burn more fat than sugar. All right. How are we doing on time? Doing okay. Any other comments, coaches, or questions in the chat or anything? Perfect. Okay. Let's talk about preloading and carb loading. This carb loading topic. Like this was like the biggest thing in the 80s. And then it kind of got poo-pooed for a while, but it's back. So we talked about how much sugar you're burning, how much you're spending. What we also implied was we don't know what we're starting at. Like we don't like how much glycogen. So your body when you finish a workout and you then eat sugar, you have a meal, and then you go rest at night. Your body is processing the carbohydrate that you ate, and some of that is getting stored into your muscle tissue and your liver as glycogen that your body will be able to tap into the next morning. So, like you wake up and you haven't eaten anything, what are you operating on? You're operating on the stored sugar. Your brain's using the sugar that's stored. You haven't eaten anything yet today. Your blood sugar might be even a little low at the beginning of the day, but what it's doing is just pulling off that glycogen that's stored in your muscle and liver. When you go out and you go and do a run first thing in the morning, having only drank a cup of coffee, guess what? Your body is going to be burning the sugar and fuel that's in your system. How much do you have stored in you? The range they say is somewhere between 1,000 and 2,500 calories that you can store. A really elite athlete might be able to store up to about 2,000, 2,500 calories of glycogen or sugar in your stomach and muscles if you are really well topped off. If you don't have a big meal or don't eat right after your last workout, if you don't eat regularly after your workouts, if you don't, restore your carbohydrate stores and give your body the nutrition it needs after a workout, it will not process that. It'll continue to try to, burn whatever it can because it hasn't gotten any fuel. You ever watch the Tour de France this year? When those guys cross the finish line, what's the first thing somebody hands them? A soda, sugar, just straight sugar, so that they can be ready and start to replenish those stores for the next day. Same thing's going on here. We need to know how much we're starting with as we start to put this plan together. So we go here and we're like, okay, well, we want to store as much carbohydrate as we can, but we also don't want to have a big sloshy gut on race day. So what do? The key is timing. So you've probably done your kind of last serious kind of shakeout ride and all that, probably a couple of days before your race anyway. 2 days before your race, think the breakfast 2 days before your race. This is your go to Denny's, get the big pile of pancakes with the whipped cream and the chocolate chips and all the syrup you want. This is the time to really load early in the day. That's your biggest meal, preparing for a half Ironman or an Ironman. That lunch of that day, 2 days ahead of your race, that's the second biggest meal. And then you just start to dial it back in just a normal, balanced meal eating. You might, keep your hydration high, keep your salt high, higher than usual. Drink with sodium, drink with electrolytes. But what we're really trying to do is we're really trying to overload so your body will pack that glycogen away in those muscles for you to use on race day, and that's gonna make it easier for you to have staying power on race day. Same thing with hydration loading. We're strategically adding hydration, electrolytes, especially sodium, early and consistent. You can use a P check. Pale yellow is the goal. Clear, like transparent is not. You can use one of these if you want to also check. And pair your eating with your hydration. This is going to help and stay mobile, right? It is good to be using those, even if it's just you're walking around. That is using muscles that's keeping the fluid running through your system and helping to hydrate those muscles. Foam rolling will help hydrate. Yeah, just things like that. Coaches, anything else?
I'll just say pairing carbs and having liquid carbs makes it a lot easier because I know for myself, carb loading can be kind of difficult. So being able to get all of those carbs in. So I think remembering that your carbs can also come from fluid sources will help, especially if you're a heavier, if you're have to hit 8 to 12 grams per kilogram of body weight. It adds up really quick.
What? April.
Yeah, I'll add to that too. I would say that one of the important things to remember is that especially if you're doing a loading, you're going to gain weight. And it is important that you gain weight because that's showing that the body is doing exactly what it needs to do. It's storing those carbohydrates, fluids, electrolytes, so that you can use those for the race. So for those that are weight conscious, that are always on the scale watching, like this might be a time where you don't do that. Unless you have a mindset where like, hey, I'm looking at this like this is important that I do gain some weight here before this race. So I wanted to throw that out there too, that it's important to recognize that you will gain some weight if you're doing a loading, and that's where we want to be.
I'm
Not
so glad you said that. If you haven't gained weight, that's a problem.
hmm
Yeah.
That's a great point, April. Just not worrying about, this is a time where, you're tapering down. And so you're not moving as much. And everybody gets all hyped up about that. And, I can't eat as much. But in reality, you want to keep eating, you want to keep fueling, you want to keep hydrating, because that's what's going to fuel you to the end. And, practicing that, finding the things that you like to eat, you enjoy to eat, give yourself grace in that you can eat things that you might not necessarily would have eaten if you're watching things. Because you just need the carbs, you need the pancakes, you need the syrup, and all the things.
Less pancakes. All right. Race morning. All right, here we go. So yeah, we're going to be sipping fluids as soon as we wake up, including sodium in your morning fluids. You're eating that main pre-race meal, good 2 to 3 hours, 3 hours before you're racing. That means if you're an Ironman or a 70.3, you're getting up pretty darn early. But this is actually pretty important. You don't want a lot of that food waste still in your stomach. You also don't want to be throwing down a lot unless you're really like experienced and this is what you do as a regular thing. Like, hey, I just, throw down the Denny's pancakes and go for a run every day. Um, you're taking fluid carbs in those last 30 to 15 minutes before your race. Um, as long as we're talking about race morning, this might also be a good thing to think about, especially those bigger races where you're going to be in the swim start line for a while. Take a bottle of water with you and be sipping on that as you're in the line, because sometimes you could be out there for 40 minutes and now you haven't drank anything. So you also have the benefit of having that, if it's just plain water, even if it's electrolytes, who cares? Charging your wetsuit just before you hop in the water too, just to get the layer of water between your skin and the wetsuit. Okay, creating your race plan. This is where I'm going to pivot. This is a terrible screenshot from RaceX. I'm going to pop over here to RaceX real quick, and we're going to take a look at, let's see if I can get to RaceX here. No, of course I can't because I don't have it open because I shut it down for some reason. Let's pull this up. Greg, do you mind if I pull yours up here?
Not at all.
Greg has been through this circus with me. We do a spreadsheet. This is actually not Greg's, but this is just like Greg's. It has we have a bunch of information about the athlete over here, about their weight, their sodium concentration, and all of that. We put together a pretty detailed plan, knowing what the sweat rate, sodium rate, and carbohydrate losses are going to be, how much we need to consume, and how we're managing so that things don't drop to zero on any one of these fronts. But then this actually gets translated into a RaceX plan, and we've got Greg's in here. By the way, everyone, wish Greg luck. Guess what he's doing this weekend?
Yeah, I
Guess
put
where
it in
he
the chat.
is. Yeah, there we go. And within your plan, you're already going to have your pacing information. Oops, actually, I probably haven't put yours in here yet. Let me go to, that's embarrassing. Let me pull up somebody else here real quick. I meant to put yours in this morning, Greg. Yours will be in there tonight.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second here. Let me pull up. I've got another athlete that's racing this weekend too, who got his ahead of Greg. So
I see where
Chris,
I rank. At least now, truth comes
yeah.
out.
Well, yeah, it's now a known thing. Everybody knows, Greg. All right, let's go to RaceX here. And this is something that if you have a coach, your coach can put this in here for you, or you can go in here and do this yourself. But you'll see in the RaceX app of TriDot, we have, we know what kind of water conditions you're going to have. We know we've talked through a pacing plan. We know what RaceX says in terms of pacing, but we're going to just, put it in words so we know it. But down here, you can put in your nutrition plan. So we've got in here the calories from breakfast and what we're eating, what we're hydrating with. Here's sipping calories while getting ready in transition. We know the total calories we're going pre-race, total fluids, total sodium. And you can do this for each of those 3 disciplines. So you'll see that was the swim, pre-swim. We have a bike plan. And again, this is this individual's specific bike plan. 40 ounces of fluid per hour with precision hydration, 750 milligrams sodium per liter, or 1,000 per 40 ounces, 350 calories or 90 grams of carbohydrate per hour, Vespa 30 minutes prior to the swim start and every 2.5 hours thereafter, total calories, total fluids, total milligrams of sodium. That's very tailored for this, that's unique to this individual. And the same thing goes for the run. So now you're just taking that work that you've done, the testing that you've done, the information that you've been able to put together, the spreadsheet that you're maintaining perhaps, and be able to put together, exactly what you're going to be using in terms of carbohydrate and nutrition, how much of those products, and what the right mix is for you based on the intensity, temperature, and duration. Put some resources in here for you guys. This is USA Triathlon and their guidelines on establishing a race nutrition plan. So we'll put this in. I'll actually pop these in the chat here for you guys too, so we can actually just share them in real time. I think. I also have in this list of resources, we have Global DRO. If you take any medications, if you want to know if this is on the banned substance list, you can put in what kind of athlete, what kind of user you are, what the sport is, in this case, triathlon, and you can put in whatever it is that you take, and you can see if it is on the banned substance list. For example, Adderall's in there. And then you can see it's in competition or out of competition recommendations. I recommend, having this this site for medications. There's also a really good one here for if you do have a banned substance, or if you are taking a substance that is banned or banned in race conditions, you can also apply for a therapeutic use exemption that will basically say, hey, USADA, USA Anti-Doping Agency, I take this, I'm asking for approval to continue to take this because I need this for my acne or whatever, And Yeah. So we'll leave these with you guys so that you can take these away. We'll send this out. And let's sort of close it out with some questions. I'll put these links in the chat.
I'll say one thing, Rich, too, is Precision Hydration. Also, they have a sweat rate calculator that you can put what your sodium sweat sodium level is, along with those same calculations that you had on your spreadsheet. They have that on their website. So if if nobody wants to create their own spreadsheet or whatever, Precision does have that as a resource, and I've used that a lot, which is really good resource.
Yeah, it's great to have all of the perspective. Think about all of the racing miles that we have amongst everybody in this room. I know you guys have experiences that you're layering on top of this, and there may be even things that you guys have experienced or know that we don't. So, please, any contribution here is invited. So please
We
contribute.
got a good question in the chat from Elizabeth, if you want me to read that out.
Sure.
All right, so thank you all for this info. Any tips for training your gut in training, especially during the week when workouts may only be an hour? Should we still be consuming a lot of carbs to make sure our stomachs can handle it?
Yeah. Anybody else want to take a crack at it?
Off the cuff, I think you'll get the classic, it depends. Um, Let me break this down a little bit here, especially during the week when workouts may only be an hour. Should we still be consuming a lot of carbs to make sure our stomachs can handle? I think it really does depend on the parameters of the workout and what you're trying to test. So if let's say it is an hour, it's in the heat, it's at intensity, and you want to give a check on whether or not something is compatible under those conditions, I think that's a really good opportunity to try something in training, right? That can tell you whether or not this is a good selection, especially under those extremes. Um, I can attest to that using things in training over and over again can also help you with whether or not you'll have flavor fatigue. So there's some things that I've had in my toolkit that I could do over and over again, but I got to a point where I couldn't. So like cliff shot blocks, for example, I used to be able to do those no problem, and then I for some reason couldn't. So I just think that they didn't. I just couldn't get over the taste anymore. Like it just became almost what's the word? Yeah, flavor fatigue, and I just couldn't even like stomach it. So I I want to throw that other side of this too, is that you can definitely overdo it with some things. But finding those preferences and absolutely giving them a go in training where you have those circumstances. And also, one of my athletes, for instance, one of the things that she would do before her swims, because she needed it, even though they were just an hour, she really did need something to hold her down because she'd get really hungry to the point of nausea. But we found out that she couldn't eat fruit or hard food because being um, horizontal in the water, she would it'd come back up. So the only thing we could do was liquid or a gel. So those are the kinds of things that can really help with you if you're willing to just go through the experimentation, which we do recommend to get to that point of understanding what your body can take, but not so much where you have to feel like you have to do all the things all the time. So you can find that balance. That's where my thoughts went with this question. Coaches, anyone else?
Is say, obviously hydrating is just going to be for your health, right? You don't need dehydration as stress to get fitter. So definitely staying on top of your hydration, even if for an hour-long effort. I know you can go run for an hour without hydrating. You don't need to do that though.
No.
It's better for your body to not, and fueling yourself is good just for your hormones, right? And your stress level. Trying to get training adaptations, not, I mean, the right stress adaptations. Do you need to drop $20 in goos a week on your 1 hour sessions? No. You can probably keep yourself healthy without doing that. But those longer sessions, 90 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, my goodness, this is prime time to train your gut and train it at intensity and temperature, right? It is a different ball of wax to go zone 2 and try to take in calories and then try to do it at zone 3.5, let's say, they don't go down the same way. I guarantee it, got to get used to doing it at intensity too. That might take some time. It's practice.
Yeah,
Well,
just
guys,
one add to that is, with those 1 hour sessions, sometimes I know for myself, I'm up in the wee hours early in the morning. Sometimes I can just crank out a workout without eating anything before, but most of the time I at least need to take a little something in. You have those stores, but especially if it's, those Tuesday crazy, 2 by 16 minute zone 4 bike intervals. I make sure that I get at least something in before those sessions, and make sure I'm hydrated. So, getting your body used to eating a little something before your workouts, even if it's just an hour, is important. Certainly, like Rich said, not throwing down millions of dollars on on gels for those sessions. It's totally not worth it. But it allows you a little bit of gut training, to okay, I tolerate this solid food before I get on my bike, etc. And it gives you options down the line if something goes haywire during a race and all there are pretzels and oranges. Well, let's try it out. So good opportunity to try things.
awesome. Awesome job, coaches. Thanks, guys, for all of the discussion. This has been great. If anybody has any questions after this, you want to reach out to one of us and get some help. Greg, if you want your actual race plan and TrainX, you just wait. It'll be there by 7 o'clock Pacific time, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, and of course, ping me tomorrow if you got any questions. It should be what we talked about last night.
Yeah,
So,
I use your email as my springboard and all that. So thank you. Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you all. We really appreciate
you,
you
Jeff.
being here tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Good presentation, Rich. And the voice is recovering well. Nice job.
A little better tonight, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Rich, is that from Cheer and Lauren on?